2 weeks ago, the S&P 500's Shiller-Cape ratio hit 39. That number means nothing to most people, but here is what it should mean to you. The last time this ratio reached this level was in the year 2000, right before the dot-com crash wiped out trillions of dollars and delayed retirements across America by years. The S&P 500's Cape ratio is at its highest level since the dot-com bubble burst in early 2000. And now, some of the most respected strategists on Wall Street are saying the same warning signs are flashing again. Fundstrat's Tom Lee, known for being bullish on stocks, has publicly acknowledged the possibility of a 10 to 15% correction, with risks potentially extending toward 20% depending on how conditions unfold. This is not fear-mongering, this is data. If you are retired or planning to retire in the next 5 years, what happens next in the market could determine whether you spend your golden years in comfort or counting every dollar until you run out. Let us start with the numbers that should terrify anyone who has not prepared properly. According to the National Council on Aging in UMass Boston, 80% of households with older adults are either financially struggling today or at risk of falling into economic insecurity. That is roughly 47 million households. Nearly half of them cannot cover basic living costs right now. Think about that. Almost half of American retirees cannot afford the basics today, and we have not even had a major market crash yet. Here is another number. The median retirement savings for Americans aged 65 to 74 is just $148,000. If you withdraw 4% of that each year, which is the standard safe withdrawal rate, you get about $500 per month. Try paying for housing, food, healthcare, and utilities on $500 a month. It gets worse. 28% of Americans in that age group have zero savings, none, and 37% have less than $50,000. Combined, that is roughly 30 million people who are one market crash, one medical emergency, or one unexpected expense away from financial disaster. The Employee Benefit Research Institute estimates that at least 40% of American households risk running short on money in retirement. The Center for Retirement Research at Boston College puts that number at 39%. These are not small percentages. These are tens of millions of real people. Now, some critics will say this is overblown. The American Enterprise Institute argues that retiree incomes are at record highs and poverty rates are low, and that is technically true for some groups. But here is what those critics miss. The statistics they cite are averages. Averages hide the people at the bottom, and the bottom is where 80% of older households find themselves. The wealth is concentrated at the top. The bottom 80% of older households actually saw their financial assets decrease between 2018 and 2020. Net wealth declined for 90% of older households from 2014 to 2016. The rich got richer. Everyone else fell behind. Now let me tell you about the first major force that could push millions of retirees into poverty. It is called sequence of returns risk. This is a technical term, but I am going to explain it simply because understanding it could save your financial life. Here is how it works. When you are working and saving for retirement, market drops are actually good for you. Prices are low, so your regular contributions buy more shares. When the market recovers, you benefit from the growth. But when you retire, everything changes. You are no longer putting money in, you are taking money out, and if the market drops early in your retirement while you are withdrawing money, you are forced to sell your investments at low prices just to pay your bills. This locks in your losses permanently. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine two retirees, both starting with $1 million, both withdrawing $40,000 per year adjusted for inflation, both experiencing an average return of 6% over 20 years. The only difference is the order of their returns. Retiree A gets positive returns early and negative returns late. Retiree B gets negative returns early and positive returns late. Same average return, completely different outcomes. Retiree A ends up with around $650,000 after 20 years. Retiree B ends up with around $100,000, nearly depleted despite the market eventually recovering. This is sequence of returns risk. The timing of your returns matters more than the average. Research shows that the first 10 years of retirement determine 77% of your portfolio's long-term outcome. early returns matter far more than later returns because early losses reduce your base and you never fully recover. During the 1973 bear market, one retiree ran out of money after 23 years. Another retiree who started just 1 year later in 1974, benefiting from the recovery, ended with $125,000 after 35 years, nearly identical long-term average returns, wildly different results. Now connect this to today. We are looking at a market that has gained double digits for 3 consecutive years. Valuations are at levels not seen since the dot-com bubble. Multiple Wall Street analysts are warning of a correction in 2026. If that correction happens and you are in the early years of retirement or about to retire, you could face the same fate as the 1973 retiree. Your nest egg could evaporate before the market recovers. This is not hypothetical. This is mathematics. Now let me tell you about the second force threatening retirees. And this one is already happening right now. It is inflation. The official inflation rate is around 2.7%, but that number is misleading for retirees because it does not reflect how retirees actually spend their money. Retirees spend more on healthcare, prescription drugs, housing, and food than younger people. And those categories have seen much higher inflation than the official numbers suggest. Healthcare costs are up over 11%. Prescription drug costs are up nearly 15%. Housing costs are up over 8%. Food costs are up over 9%. When you calculate the real inflation rate for retirees based on what they actually buy, it is between 7.8 and 9.2% annually. That is 3 to 4 times higher than the official rate. Now, Social Security has a cost of living adjustment called COLA. For 2026, the COLA was 2.8%. That added about $56 per month to the average benefit of $2,152. But after the Medicare premium increase, the net gain was only $38. Meanwhile, if real inflation for retirees is 8%, they needed $161 more per month just to break even. They got $38. That is a gap of $123 per month, or about $1,476 per year. Over time, this gap compounds. By 2027, the average retiree could lose $3,000 to $4,000 in purchasing power cumulatively. That is 10 to 13% of a $30,000 annual income gone. And it is not just inflation eating into purchasing power. Property taxes are up 6.1%. Homeowners insurance is up 19.2%. These costs force many retirees to tap into their home equity just to survive. Prescription costs average $2,800 to $3,200 yearly. 29% of seniors are skipping doses to save money. That leads to medical emergencies that can cost $25,000 to $80,000 per hospitalization. This is the inflation trap. Prices rise faster than benefits. Savings deplete faster than expected. And retirees fall further behind every single year. Now I need to tell you about the third force. This one is the most important, and almost nobody is talking about it honestly. Social Security is running out of money. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund is projected to be depleted in 2033. That is the fund that pays retirement benefits. When it runs out, benefits will automatically be cut by 23% unless Congress acts. Let me repeat that. In less than 8 years, unless Congress changes the law, every single Social Security recipient, regardless of age, wealth, or need, will face an automatic 23% cut in their benefits. For the average retired couple, that means losing about $16,500 per year in income. According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Social Security's primary trust fund will be depleted in 2033. Unless Congress acts, current and future beneficiaries alike will see their benefits cut by 23%. The program's long-run finances show an estimated $25 trillion shortfall over the next 75 years. Now, some people will say Congress will never let this happen. They will fix it, maybe. But consider this. Congress has known about this problem for decades and has done nothing. Both parties have failed to act. The longer they wait, the harder the fix becomes. If Congress waits until the trust fund is depleted, the options are brutal. Either massive benefit cuts, massive tax increases, or some combination that will be painful for everyone. About 40 million Americans rely on Social Security for more than half their income. For many, it is their entire income. A 23% cut would push millions into poverty. The Urban Institute projects that if benefit cuts happen, poverty among older adults could increase by more than 50%. This is not a distant problem. This is coming in 8 years. If you are 59 today, you will reach full retirement age right when the trust fund runs out. Now let me connect all three of these forces together because they do not operate in isolation. They compound each other. Imagine a retiree in 2033. The market has just experienced a significant correction, similar to what happened in 2000 or 2008. Their portfolio is down 30 or 40%. At the same time, Social Security benefits have been cut by 23%, and real inflation is running at 8%, eroding whatever income they have left. This is the triple threat: market losses, benefit cuts, and inflation all hitting at once. A retiree with $300,000 in savings faces a 40% market drop, leaving them with $180,000. Their Social Security benefit of $2,000 per month drops to $1,540, and inflation is eating away at their purchasing power by 8% every year. They need to withdraw more from their shrinking portfolio just to cover rising costs. Each withdrawal during the market downturn locks in losses and depletes their nest egg faster. The sequence of returns risk I described earlier kicks in with full force. Even when the market recovers, their portfolio is too depleted to benefit. They run out of money years before they expected. This is not a worst-case scenario. This is a realistic projection based on current trends and data. Now let me talk about something that is making all of this worse: the AI bubble. Right now, the stock market is heavily concentrated in a handful of giant technology companies, the so-called Magnificent Seven, which includes Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, and Tesla, make up roughly 35% of the S&P 500 index. This is the highest concentration in major indices since the dot-com era. Many retirement accounts, 401ks, and IRAs are invested in S&P 500 index funds. If you own an S&P 500 index fund, you are not diversified. You are heavily exposed to 7 companies, and those 7 companies are all betting big on artificial intelligence. The AI investment boom has driven massive capital expenditures. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being spent on data centers, chips, and cloud infrastructure. The assumption is that AI will generate enormous returns to justify these investments. But what if it does not? Michael Burry, the investor who predicted the 2008 housing crash, has warned about circular capital flows in the AI sector. He argues that mega-cap firms are recycling funds among themselves, creating revenue that looks impressive but is not sustainable without broad third-party demand. Bill Gross, the legendary bond investor, has warned about malinvestment in AI infrastructure, comparing it to the excess of the 2000 telecom bubble. Analysts estimate that hyperscalers could face depreciation expenses that exceed their profits by 2028 if AI does not deliver on its promises. If the AI bubble bursts or even just deflates slowly, the S&P 500 could drop significantly. And because retirement accounts are so heavily exposed to these stocks, millions of retirees would see their portfolios shrink dramatically. According to a recent survey, 57% of investors view an AI valuation plunge as the top threat for 2026. This is concentration risk. When your retirement is tied to a handful of stocks, all making the same bet on the same technology, you are not diversified. You are gambling. So, what can you do about all this? I promised you actionable steps, and I am going to deliver. Step 1. Know your actual exposure. Look at your 401k and IRA. Find out what percentage is in S&P 500 index funds or large cap growth funds. If you have multiple accounts, add them up. You might be shocked to discover how much overlap you have. If more than 40% of your retirement portfolio is concentrated in a handful of mega cap tech stocks, you need to think seriously about diversification. Step 2. Build a cash buffer. Financial planners recommend having 1 to 2 years of living expenses in cash or cash equivalents. This is money you will not need to touch during a market downturn. It means you will not be forced to sell investments at low prices just to pay your bills. This cash buffer protects you from sequence of returns risk. If the market drops, you live off your cash while your investments have time to recover. Step 3. Diversify across asset classes. Do not put all your money in stocks. Consider bonds, treasury inflation-protected securities or TIPS, real estate investment trusts, commodities like gold, and international stocks. The goal is to own assets that do not all move in the same direction at the same time. When stocks fall, bonds often rise. When inflation spikes, gold and TIPS tend to hold their value. Step 4. Consider income annuities. This is controversial, and I am not saying it is right for everyone, but income annuities provide guaranteed monthly payments for life, regardless of what the market does. They transfer longevity risk from you to an insurance company. If you are worried about outliving your money, an annuity can provide peace of mind. But shop carefully. Fees vary widely, and some annuity products are better than others. Step 5. Be flexible with your spending. Research shows that retirees who adjust their spending during market downturns significantly extend the life of their portfolios. If the market drops 20%, cutting your spending by 5 to 10% can prevent permanent damage to your nest egg. This requires budgeting and discipline, but it works. Step 6. Think carefully about when to claim Social Security. Every year you delay claiming Social Security past age 62, your benefit increases. If you wait until age 70, your benefit can be 76% higher than if you claimed at 62. Given the uncertainty around future benefit cuts, there is a reasonable argument for claiming earlier to lock in benefits while they are still at 100%. There is also a reasonable argument for waiting to maximize your guaranteed lifetime income. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on your health, your other income sources, and your risk tolerance. But think it through carefully. Do not just default to the earliest date because that is what most people do. Step 7. Plan for long-term care. This is the expense that destroys retirement plans. 68 to 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care. Nursing homes cost $9,000 or more per month. Home health aides cost $4,500 per month. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Only 7.3 million Americans have long-term care insurance. 40 to 62% of people who need nursing home care exhaust their assets and end up on Medicaid. You need a plan for this. It might be long-term care insurance. It might be a hybrid life insurance policy with long-term care benefits. It might be self-insuring by setting aside a dedicated pool of money, but ignoring it is not a plan. Step 8. Stay informed and adapt. The retirement landscape is changing. Social Security rules might change. Tax laws might change. Market conditions will definitely change. Do not set your retirement plan once and forget it. Review it annually. Make adjustments as circumstances change. Stay flexible. Let me be direct with you for a moment. The retirement system in America is broken. It was designed in an era when people died younger, when companies provided pensions, and when Social Security was fully funded. None of those things are true anymore. Today, people live longer, which means they need more money. Pensions have been replaced by 401ks, which shift all the risk onto individuals, and Social Security is heading toward insolvency. The government is not going to save you. Your employer is not going to save you. You have to save yourself. That means taking control of your financial future. It means understanding the risks. It means making a plan and sticking to it. The numbers I have shared today are alarming, but they are not hopeless. Millions of Americans have saved enough. Millions more can still take action to improve their situation. The key is starting now, not next year, not when the market crashes. Now. Every month you delay making changes is a month of compounding you lose. Every year you avoid facing the truth is a year you cannot get back. Let me summarize what we have covered. First, 80% of older American households are either struggling financially or at risk of economic insecurity. Savings are far too low for most people. Second, Sequence of returns risk means that a market crash in the early years of retirement can permanently destroy a portfolio, even if the market eventually recovers. Third, real inflation for retirees is running at 3 to 4 times the official rate, eroding purchasing power faster than Social Security cost of living adjustments can keep up. Fourth, Social Security's trust fund is projected to be depleted in 2033, which would trigger automatic benefit cuts of 23% unless Congress acts. Fifth, retirement portfolios are dangerously concentrated in a handful of technology stocks that are all betting on artificial intelligence. If that bet fails, millions of retirees will suffer. These forces are converging. They are not distant problems. They are happening now, but there are things you can do. Build a cash buffer. Diversify your investments. Consider income annuities. Be flexible with spending. Think carefully about Social Security timing. Plan for long-term care. Stay informed. The retirees who will be broke after the next market move are the ones who do nothing, the ones who pretend these problems do not exist, the ones who hope it will all work out. Hope is not a strategy. The retirees who will be okay are the ones who face the truth, make a plan, and take action. Be one of those retirees. Before I close, I want to address something that I know many of you are thinking right now. You might be thinking, I have already made mistakes. I did not save enough. I am too old to start now. It is too late for me. Let me be very clear. It is almost never too late. Yes, if you are 65 with zero savings, you face challenges. But even at 65, you likely have 20 or more years ahead of you. That is still time to make changes that matter. Maybe you cannot retire on your original timeline. Maybe you need to work a few more years. Maybe you need to adjust your expectations for what retirement looks like. But working 3 more years can make an enormous difference. It gives your existing savings more time to grow. It gives you 3 more years of contributions. It shortens the time your money needs to last, and it allows you to delay Social Security, increasing your benefit significantly. A 2020 study found that working just 1 year longer increases retirement income security by nearly as much as saving an extra percentage point of salary over the entire career. That is the power of time. I also want to talk about the psychology of retirement planning, because the numbers are only part of the story. One of the biggest mistakes people make is ignoring the problem because it feels overwhelming. They know they should save more. They know they should diversify. They know they should have a plan. But the thought of confronting their financial situation fills them with anxiety, so they avoid it. This is called the ostrich effect. When we do not like what we see, we bury our heads in the sand. But avoidance makes the problem worse. Every year of inaction is a year of lost compounding, lost opportunities, and lost options. The antidote to avoidance is action, even small actions. You do not have to solve everything today. You just have to start. Log into your 401k and look at your holdings. Write down your monthly expenses. Calculate how much you are spending versus how much you are earning. These small steps break the paralysis. Momentum builds on itself. Once you start, it becomes easier to continue. Another psychological trap is overconfidence. Some people look at their 401k balance and feel wealthy. They see a big number and assume they are set, but they have not done the math. $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but at a 4% withdrawal rate, that is $40,000 per year. After taxes, depending on your state and whether the money is in traditional or Roth accounts, you might be looking at $32,000 to $36,000. Is that enough? For some people, yes. For others, no. The point is, you cannot know if you are on track unless you actually calculate what you will need and compare it to what you have. Most financial planners recommend replacing 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income. If you earned $100,000 before retirement, you need $70,000 to $80,000 annually in retirement. Between Social Security and your savings, can you hit that number? If not, you need a plan to close the gap. Let me talk about what happens in the next few years, because the window for action is closing. If you are 55 today, you have about 8 years until Social Security's trust fund is projected to run out. You have 8 years to save more, adjust your portfolio, and prepare for potential benefit cuts. 8 years is a reasonable amount of time if you start now. It is not enough time if you wait another 3 or 4 years. If you are 60 today, you have less time. Every decision you make about when to retire, when to claim Social Security, and how to manage your investments carries more weight. If you are 65 today, you are likely already retired or close to it. Your focus should be on preserving what you have, minimizing sequence of returns risk, and ensuring your income lasts. Regardless of your age, the message is the same. The time to act is now. I want to share a story that illustrates why this matters. During the 2008 financial crisis, millions of Americans saw their retirement accounts lose 30, 40, even 50% of their value in a matter of months. Many of those people panicked. They sold at the bottom, locking in their losses. When the market recovered, they were not invested to benefit. Others stayed the course. They did not sell. They rebalanced into stocks when prices were low. Over the next decade, they more than recovered their losses. The difference between those two outcomes was not intelligence. It was behavior. The people who panicked made an emotional decision during a stressful time. The people who stayed disciplined followed a plan they had made in advance. This is why having a plan matters. When the next crash comes, and it will come, you need to know what you will do before it happens. If you wait until you are in the middle of a crisis to decide, emotions will take over. Your plan might be, if the market drops 20%, I will rebalance my portfolio to maintain my target allocation. Or, if the market drops, I will cut discretionary spending by 15% and live off my cash buffer. Whatever your plan is, decide it now. Write it down, review it periodically, and stick to it when the time comes. Let me also address the temptation to chase high returns. When markets are rising, it is easy to get greedy. People look at the gains in technology stocks and think, why am I not all in on this? But chasing returns is one of the fastest ways to destroy your retirement. Yes, some people got rich buying Nvidia early. But for every winner, there are dozens of losers. The stocks that look obvious in hindsight were not obvious at the time. And even if you pick the right stock, timing matters. Buy at the top of a bubble, and you might wait a decade to break even. The smarter approach is diversification. Own a mix of assets. Accept that you will not capture all of the upside, but you will also be protected from much of the downside. Over a 30-year retirement, consistency beats brilliance. Steady returns that compound over time will beat boom and bust cycles that force you to sell at the wrong time. This is boring advice. It is not exciting, but it works. Now, let me give you a clear picture of what a protected retirement looks like. Imagine someone retiring at 65 with $500,000 saved. They have 2 years of living expenses, about $100,000 in a high-yield savings account. This is their cash buffer. The remaining $400,000 is invested in a diversified portfolio, 40% in U.S. stocks, but equally weighted, not concentrated in mega caps, 20% in international stocks, 20% in bonds and tips, 10% in real estate investment trusts, 10% in gold and commodities. They claim Social Security at 70 to maximize their benefit. During the 5 years from 65 to 70, they live off their cash buffer and some portfolio withdrawals. When they turn 70, their Social Security benefit is significantly higher than it would have been at 65. Combined with their portfolio withdrawals, they have a comfortable income. If the market drops, they have flexibility. They can reduce portfolio withdrawals and lean more heavily on Social Security. They can cut discretionary spending temporarily. They have time for the market to recover because their cash buffer provides a runway. This is what protected retirement looks like. It is not about being rich. It is about being prepared. Let me go deeper on something I mentioned earlier because it is critically important. The idea that your 401k might actually be a tech fund in disguise. Most people think index funds are diversified. They see 500 stocks and assume that means protection against any single company's failure. But that is not how market cap weighted indexes work. In a market cap weighted index like the S&P 500, companies are weighted by their total market value. The bigger the company, the bigger its share of the index. Right now, the top 10 companies in the S&P 500 account for about 40% of the entire index. The Magnificent Seven alone make up about 35%. That means if you own an S&P 500 index fund, more than a third of your money is in just 7 stocks. And those 7 stocks are all in the technology sector, all making massive bets on artificial intelligence. This is not diversification. This is concentration hiding behind the label of diversification. If you want true diversification, you need to look beyond standard market cap weighted funds. Equal weighted S&P 500 ETFs give each company the same weight, reducing concentration in megacaps. International funds give you exposure to companies outside the US. Small cap and mid cap funds give you exposure to different segments of the market. The goal is to own assets that respond differently to different conditions. When US tech stocks fall, maybe international stocks hold steady. When stocks fall, maybe bonds rise. When inflation spikes, maybe gold and tips protect you. This is how you build resilience into your portfolio. One more thing I want to discuss is healthcare costs, because this is the wild card that destroys more retirement plans than anything else. The average 65-year-old couple will spend approximately $315,000 on healthcare in retirement, not including long-term care. That number includes Medicare premiums, supplemental insurance, copays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs. If you need long-term care, add another $100,000 to $500,000 or more, depending on how long you need it and what type of care you require. These costs are rising faster than general inflation, and they are largely unpredictable. You cannot know in advance whether you will be healthy or sick, whether you will need a nursing home for 6 months or 6 years. This uncertainty is what makes retirement planning so difficult. You cannot simply calculate your expenses and multiply by years of retirement. You have to plan for contingencies. Some strategies to consider. First, maximize your health savings account if you are still working and have access to one. HSA contributions are tax-deductible, growth is tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. After age 65, you can use HSA funds for any purpose without penalty, though non-medical withdrawals are taxable as income. Second, understand your Medicare options thoroughly. Original Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medigap plans, and Part D drug plans all have different costs and coverage. The wrong choice can cost you thousands of dollars per year. Third, consider long-term care insurance, but do it while you are still healthy enough to qualify and young enough to afford the premiums. A policy purchased at 55 is far cheaper than one purchased at 65. Fourth, have a family conversation about long-term care preferences and expectations. Will family members provide care? What happens if no one is available? What is the plan? These are not comfortable conversations, but having them now is better than facing a crisis later without a plan. The retirement crisis I have described today is real, but it is not inevitable for you personally. The people who will be broke after the next market move are the people who have not prepared. They are the ones with all their money in one basket, no cash buffer, no plan for a downturn, and unrealistic expectations about Social Security. You do not have to be one of them. The tools exist, the knowledge exists, the path exists. What is required is action, decision, discipline. Take control of your retirement. Do not leave it to chance. Do not leave it to Congress. Do not leave it to the market. Your financial security is your responsibility, and you are capable of achieving it if you commit to doing what is necessary. If you found this information valuable, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you do not miss future videos. Share this video with someone you care about who needs to hear this. And leave a comment below telling me your biggest retirement concern. I read every comment, and your questions help me decide what topics to cover next. Take care of yourself, take care of your money, and I will see you in the next video.